For more on this, we can bring in our European Affairs editor, Armen Georgian. Armen, great to see you. Talk us through this meeting. What is it? Is it just big on symbolism, or will anything come out of this gathering?
Symbolism is very important, Delano, also for the host, Moldova, of course, which is trying to join the European Union, and it's getting a lot of support from the EU already. But there is a general message that this family photo that we just played wants to show, which is that this is a political family, that it's based on all participants committing to a similar process of political and judicial reforms, which these leaders hope will finally land these countries inside the European Union itself and not in some kind of substitute structure. And although EU leaders have they keep repeating the European political community is not a substitute for the EU. It's a way for people in the broader neighborhood to gather. There are still some suspicions in some quarters that some of these countries will be, so to speak, parked in this structure as a way of compensating, not integrating them fully into the European,
like it's a middle ground.
European Union itself. Although, as I say, the leaders of the EU institutions keep saying, no, that's not the case. These countries, if they pursue this process of political judicial reforms, they will be able to eventually join the EU. But I spoke to a senior Romanian politician, a former minister, Victor Negrescu, about this question of the EPC. Is it a substitute for the EU or not? Here's what he had to say.
Will allow us to have a better interaction with the countries trying to get in the European Union, but this should not replace the process of integration. We have to offer a European perspective for Ukraine, for Republic of Moldova, for the countries in the Western Balkans, and they have to get in the European Union, not in another platform.
On deliverables, Delano, I think we'll have to see, obviously, later on in the day. What we've heard is that there are some potentially significant meetings happening on the sidelines in bilateral formats, because there's a lot of bilaterals and trilaterals in this EPC summit in Moldova. So it's a chance to discuss the hot button issues, Serbia and Kosovo, neither of which are in the EU, but of course they're very important to Brussels, Armenia and Azerbaijan, which are not in the EU, but the European Union has interests in both of those countries. So we'll have to see, I think, when we get the final communique, I suppose.
And talk us through this EPC, because I think it's the first time you and I are talking about one of their gatherings. It seems it's the brainchild of the French president.
Well, that's how it's often portrayed. Actually, if you talk to think tank type people in Brussels, they'll say that Macron sort of appropriated this, that the idea has been around for more than 20 years. But certainly he, at the very least, revived it and gave it a big push. This is actually the second EPC summit, so it's now becoming a more kind of solid group entity, if you will. As for Macron himself, well, he was praised, wasn't he, in Bratislava in Slovakia for saying that in the past France hadn't listened enough to Central and European countries. So his tone does seem to have shifted from those days when he said that Russia should not be humiliated.
And given off-ramp.
That's right. But at the same time, Macron also more recently, remember his quite controversial comments about Taiwan, about how Europe should not be a follower of the United States. That kind of talk still doesn't go down well with Central and Eastern European audiences. So Macron, he's not one single thing, he's sending these different messages depending on the context that he's in. But to come back to Ukraine for a second, he has been pretty consistent that Ukraine should be given a deal with security guarantees, but one that stops short of full membership of NATO. He has been consistent on that. He said that this week again in Slovakia, and this puts him at odds, of course, with some of his partners in Europe, but he insists still that this is the only really consensus solution that can be reached, given that some people want Ukraine to be a full member of NATO, some don't want Ukraine to be full members of NATO.
We'll see what happens between now and July. Thank you very much for that, Armen Georgian there.